What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. The League's Cup final is over. Messi won it. The script writers didn't have to work that hard because Messi did his job. Messi did what he was supposed to do, scoring 10 goals in 7 games. It was insane. You knew it was going to happen, but even when it happened, you were still surprised. Here to help me talk about all that, we got Justin Ruderman. Justin, how you doing?
Doing well, man. You put it perfectly there. Just you expect it to happen, but you're still shocked it happens because it's like, of course Messi is the best. Of course he's going to go win, but he can't actually win every single game, can he? Well, he has so far.
He has, which is it's just crazy to just to see witness. I went to the PKs and all those different things, but just the lead up to it. And I know, there's always going to be that debate, right? Messi versus Ronaldo and all those different things. But the one different big difference for me right now is Messi has scored in every single game he's played for Inter Miami. I don't think Ronaldo has, right? And this is not me trying to bash on Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo's obviously a GOAT in itself as well. But I don't know because we don't get to watch the Saudi league, right? We're definitely a lot more biased because we got to watch MLS more. But just seeing him be able to score in every single game and how he's done it every single game has just been impressive. And I don't know, it's just it's in a way it's cool to see, and it's good to see like a player of that caliber play in this league because I think it doesn't matter if he played in the MLS or he could be doing this in the top 5 leagues in the world, you know? And I don't think it really would matter necessarily where Messi would be playing right now. He would still do it to any other team.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's talking about, right? Is it that MLS defending is so bad, or is it that Messi is that good? And I think it's both. Um, Messi would do this to anybody, right? He would do this in any league in the world. He has consistently done this in any league in the world. Maybe not scoring in 7 games in a row. He's only done that a few times in his career, but he has done it a few times, right? That tells you. So it's and you combine it with, yes, MLS defending is lower level. We all know that, and hopefully it will incentivize MLS owners and general managers to spend more on defenders and bulk up there. But I've always called this on my Upper 90 channel and everything. I've always called MLS the League of Bangers, right? Because I think there has always been a lack of defending at that top of the 18, right around that area, which is where a lot of stunning goals come from. And I also think that we have the best league, the best position, excuse me, in the league is attacking midfield generally, which is not exactly where Messi plays, but he drifts into those positions. And so when you combine those things, you're going to get a lot of great goals. And I think Messi is proving when you have all of the skill that Messi does as the greatest player of all time, you can score those goals almost every game. And that is what is incredible to see. And I think, yeah, as you say, it's what we've been waiting for years. We've all wanted Messi to come. We've anticipated that this might happen. And even though lofty expectations that we all had are being exceeded, which tells you just how great he is.
Yeah, no, no, it's just insane to continue, even just to on that goal. Like he had such just a tight window to do, and I think just to be able to do it and how impressive it is. You're like, no way he's gonna do it, no way he's gonna score, right? And he continues to do so. And watch this, and also too, like just on the other side, it also brings up obviously like there's always going to be now this debate, right? MLS versus the Saudi league. Obviously, MLS can't compete with the amount of money Saudi league and the Saudi government is doing to build up that. But I do kind of wonder if we potentially in the future have an MLS. I know we don't want to do these all-star games or anything like that, but like would it MLS versus Saudi all-stars be intriguing, or would that be something that would we want to see, right? Because there's that debate now that MLS versus Saudi, that's right, like the next biggest league or whatever. Obviously, I think the Saudi has more players, so you expect them to be better. But I think we still got to see how this all pans out for them, because I think when you're throwing so much money, I don't think it necessarily turns out to be good. Most of the times, you still have to have some solid infrastructure, and I think it's too early to tell. Like, look, we could just see kind of like Chelsea's not doing so well. I think Newcastle, we've seen was happening at PSG, but we've also seen when you spend a lot of money like Real Madrid and at the time Barcelona did it, when you have that solid infrastructure, it tends to work out pretty well. So I think it's early right now with what Saudi is doing, and I'm very intrigued on how potentially what the future is between MLS and Saudi, or if there is even a future. I don't know what your take is or what you're curious about between the two leagues.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we had two questions there. I'll answer the Messi one first because of the defending on that goal was incredible, right? It was not poor MLS defending. There were four guys glued to Messi, and he still found an inch of space, which is just incredible because and you say, well, if there's four guys, somebody's got to be able to, get a foot and block it, right? Well, no, because you can't get that close. You can't foul him because if you foul him, he scores the free kick, right? So it's just like a double-edged sword. It's impossible to defend him even if you're glued to him. So great point there, Gio. But as in terms of MLS versus Saudi, honestly, I just don't see the reason to try and compete with Saudi. I don't think it's like I see the reason why everyone's comparing them, obviously. But in terms of competition, the way that MLS is structured, the way that MLS is trying to build is not remotely the way that Saudi is trying to build, right? And I don't think that there's any way for these two leagues to compete. As you say, MLS is never going to pay the type of money that Saudi is going to pay for transfer fees or for contracts. So Saudi will be able to buy these top players that are coming in. And Aymeric Laporte just went to join Ronaldo, and at 29 years old, he's still, in my opinion, one of the best defenders in the world. So Saudi will be able to get those players, but then you look at the infrastructure from top to bottom in Saudi, and I don't think it's nearly what we have in MLS. When we're talking about the bottom teams to the top, and we're talking about throughout the teams, the depth of team, the quality throughout the league is less. So I think when you're talking about like if there were to be an MLS versus Saudi All-Star game that you brought up, Saudi would absolutely destroy the MLS All-Star team, right? Because the top players are much better. You have your Roberto Firminos up top, and you have your Aymeric Laportes at the back. Like that is much higher than MLS level outside of course, Messi. And so that will always be the case. But if you look at top to bottom, if you put a Leagues Cup together, for example, of these teams, you would see that the bottom teams and teams who are not the four or so top teams in Saudi that can spend ridiculously so are not the same level, right? So I think it's more about the league to me in MLS, and MLS is trying to build in youth and development and trying to be a development league, and they can be that way for South Americans and now young Europeans to come over and get back into the top way in Europe. So I just think the way that these leagues is structured is very, very different.
Yeah, no, and that to me is what I also thought. There's only gonna be room for certain teams to be successful in the Saudi league. I know they're because like yeah, you like all right, they're gonna spread the love with all these different Saudi leagues getting their players, but I feel like Ronaldo's Al Nassr and it's clear Al Hilal who got Neymar. I think those are gonna be the top two, and I don't think there's room for any other team to be as good because there's only one champion. There's only room for one champion. I know there's talks about but them potentially joining Champions League and all these different things. But I feel like I want to see how this works out for them because I don't know. Like I obviously MLS infrastructure is a lot better because we've seen it right there. It's a very conservative approach. Um, and the Saudi league seems very aggressive and very exciting. But like to you said, like from top to bottom, it's not as even in the MLS. It's a little bit more conservative. Even though I think we want them to be more, we like to see MLS be a little bit more aggressive now that the foundation has been built. I don't think for the Saudi just yet. The foundation has been built, and we'll have to see how that pans out to them. But yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about obviously the Leagues Cup final, Messi winning them. Nashville being there. I know you had tweeted last week about like Nashville not complaining, or I forgot. I don't remember the word for word. Maybe you can help me out with your tweet. They weren't talking about the roster rules restriction. I think you brought up a great point because they weren't complaining, or no, nor should they, about the roster rules heading there to the final after beating Monterrey and heading there. And it shows that they can still compete, right? Even with these restrictions that I think LAFC head coach Steve Sharondo had brought up. And I guess just elaborate a little bit more on your thoughts, and then obviously on Nashville making it to the final.
Yeah, of course. The tweet was basically just like interesting how Nashville were able to beat Monterey with the same roster restrictions that LAFC has, right? And yeah, of course it's tongue in cheek, but there's truth to it, and that's why it is tongue in cheek because it's honesty as well, right? Sure, there are disadvantages for MLS teams. We all know this, and the complaints are legitimate. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you cannot beat these teams. That doesn't mean that it's impossible to win these games. And when you're up 2-0, as LAFC was, clearly you have the ability to beat that team, right? So it's not about roster rules once you're up 2-0, and that's what we discussed last week on the pod, right? Because and that's the key part. Yes, MLS teams are at a disadvantage. We all know that, but that doesn't mean it is impossible to beat them, especially including those top teams, right? Monterrey can be beaten. Club America can be beaten. Tigres can be beaten. Even if you are at a disadvantage, you agreed to play in this competition because you know that they can be beaten. And there was a reason that the two finalists were MLS teams.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's interesting. I also kind of wonder too, because like, look, if we're gonna be honest, the Liga MX teams were to a disadvantage with all the travel and all these different things, but they
Mhm.
did sign up for this tournament. I kind of almost wonder, like, moving forward for next year, like, should this have this in Mexico, or should they have this in one location so it's fair for all the teams? And you can travel, you're playing in one state, or you're playing in one region of the country instead of traveling all over. And I guess I kind of wonder what would be the solution, because you don't want a team like, obviously it was unfortunate for what happened to Monterrey, but like, you want to see the teams at their best, be at their best health wise, and be at their best mental wise and everything, right? That's why tournaments like the World Cup, where it's going to be every 4 years, right? And if Leagues Cup is going to be that tournament here, or if that's what they want to make it, I think you have to hear all the complaints and all those different things, because look, the first year is not going to be perfect, but if you don't improve this tournament moving forward and certain things like that, then and you have these flaws, I don't think you can continue with these flaws that the Leagues Cup tournament has in its first year, and I assume it's only going to get better. But what are your thoughts? Do you think they should have it in one certain location, or what improvements would you want to see?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting topic, very important, and I'm concerned about it as well because of recent comments from Don Garber in which he said that it cannot be hosted in, it can't be a joint host in multiple countries. It's got to be in a single country, logistics wise, right? Because of travel and things like that. Traveling across the United States is already like traveling across multiple countries, obviously, but that is already difficult enough. And he's saying that it is not going to be hosted in joint countries, which to me is the only real good solution because I don't see this tournament being hosted solely in Mexico. I don't expect that to happen. And even if that does happen, that gives Mexican teams an advantage, right? Which is fine if you do it, bounce it back, 1 year, the next year, and this and that. But I think that the best solution is just to host it jointly in Mexico and the United States. You can use, the southern parts that are close. Use Texas, use California, right? The closest parts to Mexico. Um, and I think that's the only real solution because I think if you host it solely in one country, that's never going to be a solution. And more to the point, I think that the organizers of Leagues Cup are always going to choose the United States if they're going to choose one country.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think even if you have Tijuana, they could probably use that stadium. Yeah, they have Juarez, they have their stadium.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it has to be, it has to make a little bit more sense. I think the whole traveling thing, just to me was just right. You had Leon going from like Vancouver and missed flights and everything. It just has to be more organized better. And I think that it will. And I think that's my thing. And I think if it's just like the southern states, or if it's just hosted in California or hosted or whatever, I think it's going to make more sense, because I think the travel thing was an issue. And
And
I think when you have a tournament, you don't want that many complaints. And there was a lot more complaints than I thought there was going to be.
And to me, one of the easiest ways to do this is to simply make those knockout stages neutral venues, right? Put them in Texas, California, and Mexico. You have the regions just like you did in the groups, but rather than making Monterey travel from LA to Nashville to et cetera, all over the country, that those are long flights. Have all of the knockout stage games in neutral venues in those areas, and yeah, I understand that you want home fans to be able to be there, and that would be the thing. But it's just a point that there are ways around these type of issues in order to joint host it, because I think joint hosting is the only real solution here.
Yeah, and I think even how they do it with nations, like how you can have those back-to-back games on certain stadiums, right? Like we saw,
Mhm.
like right, the back-to-back
Exactly.
games. I think that would be like you get two games for the price of one or whatever, and I think that would entice more people and you get more fans to get to those venues, obviously. So yeah, we'll see. I definitely that's one of the things I would like to see improve with this Leagues Cup tournament. I think the officiating calls has to be a little bit cleaner, a little bit better. Yeah, because you like especially with technology, it should not take that long for these calls and all these technical issues that they were having back and forth. I think it should be a little bit more cleaner on that aspect. We even saw at the Rose Bowl when it took forever to get that call or whatever, and even
That's
with
not
what
specific
happened
to
with
Leagues
the
Cup. That's more of
well,
a football issue, right?
well, what I was saying, like that shouldn't just happen though. That they should be like more of those things should be prepared. I think even with just with America, that penalty, like he was off the line, but it should not take 5 to 10 minutes to get that call, right? So I think those are the things that stick out to me. Because if I'm just watching this game as a fan or anything like that, like those calls, in my opinion, should be called a lot sooner than later. You know, and I think those things are what takes away from the entertainment, and then that's what that, into my opinion, adds doubt into fans, into a tournament like this, and just different things like that. And I think when you look, you're never gonna get it perfect, but those things are things that could be cleaned up, and you leave a lot of that doubt in fans that this tournament is not good, or you know what I'm saying. Like I think those things could be cleaned up a lot better.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying. I think like those things are the VAR, the time. Those things are universal in football. Any league, any competition. I don't think they're specific to Leagues Cup in any way. Is my point. I think that those things can be cleaned up in every competition. MLS, Premier League, La Liga, like wherever, it doesn't matter. I think that that can be cleaned up. But in terms of Leagues Cup, yeah, the hosting is what is specific to Leagues Cup, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, let's move forward. Let's talk about, obviously, no games this weekend. We had Hurricane Hillary, which just rained out. I wasn't too worried about it, to be honest, because I was like, we had an earthquake. I didn't feel the earthquake. Usually I feel the earthquakes in LA, but for whatever reason I didn't. I don't know why. But yeah, I don't know if you did. So no games for either LA teams this weekend. Because of that, makes total sense. I think LAFC got theirs moved to this Wednesday. Is that correct? I think they're gonna play this Wednesday. And then I think Galaxy got moved theirs to like October something. So a lot of games moving on, moving around. But let's talk about LAFC a little bit. Because looking at Nashville, you got to think. At least for me, when I was thinking, I was like, you have to think like, man, LAFC could have played that. You and I could have saw this final here at BMO Stadium or anything like that. But obviously, look, that happens. Monterrey got the best of them. They have to move on. They play Colorado this Wednesday, and then they play again. They play against Charlotte. They travel to Charlotte, and then next Sunday, September 3rd, they have Inter Miami coming in. So 3 games, 3 huge games, back-to-back games. What are your thoughts on these next 3 games? What LAFC has to do to come back from that, and now focus on just the season, MLS season?
Yeah, I mean, returning to MLS play, right? And I think it's Western Conference time, right? This is the race. It heats up now. I think there's about 4 teams really when you look at it. LAFC, St. Louis, Salt Lake, and Seattle are the 4 to me that are really in that race for the top of the Western Conference right now. It's going to be a very good race, but now LAFC gets to focus solely on the Western Conference race outside of course, that Campeones Cup. But really, your sole focus is now, it's not about CCL, it's not about Leagues Cup, it's not about Open Cup. All of those are out of the way and out of thought process, which is not true, of course, for Salt Lake, who are still in the Open Cup. They still have that distraction. So I think that can help LAFC. I think the rest, obviously, 12 days rest after Leagues Cup. We saw how the rest benefited them entering Leagues Cup. It could benefit them in a similar way once again. And then uh, you know, single game weeks are really important, right? LAFC is playing every weekend rather than twice a week as they had been doing for the vast majority of this season, which allows them to train, to have more rest and recovery and things, which can be really useful when you have players like Giorgio Chiellini and Carlos Vela who need that rest.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna see how they bounce back from that, and then obviously rest is always helpful. But yeah, I think that the way it ended for them, it has to be in the back of the mind. They want to get over that sooner than later. And hopefully this Wednesday they can do it. Because yeah, like you look, they got reinforcements coming in. What are your thoughts on the players that they just signed? Obviously, we saw Gonzalez play against Monterrey. I mean, I don't think that's a fair assessment. We need to see more of him. I know he did an interview with LAFC and they talked about, like him exciting, wanting to score goals and be impactful for his team. What are your thoughts on the new signings for LAFC and what we could potentially expect? What do you expect from them?
Yeah, I think Krastev and Kike are definitely bench role players. They're coming off the bench, but they're gonna have roles in which they're expected to contribute. Krastev showed his ability with his goal on debut, right? Kike should be available and ready to play on Wednesday. He is in Los Angeles. He is visa, everything sorted, so he'll be available, ready to go. Another Uruguayan winger for LAFC fans, which will definitely be interesting. And then Mario, of course, is the big one, right? The big Tam signing, the number 9, who you expect him to come and score goals. How quickly he can adapt is going to be the question. I think that he is definitely a true number 9 poacher goal scorer, and he will put goals in the back of the net. It's just about him adapting to the LAC system, fitting in, players learning where he wants the ball to be played, so that he can beat his defender to the ball, which I think is one of his biggest strengths. Is simply, if he is in the same spot as his defender, he's going to go beat that defender to the ball every single time, and put it in the back of the net. So I think that's what you should be looking for Mario. As you said, the Monterrey game, his first game, he was just thrown in there because there was no Vela and they needed somebody with some pedigree up there. And it wasn't his best game. We all know that, but it was. He needs time, and so we'll see. But I have high hopes for him for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody's been wanting to get to know him, wanting. There's big expectations from him to score goals, and I think anytime you want a player to score goals, it doesn't get easier from him. And right as a number 9, that's what you're expected, and that's what you want to do. Just to go back a little bit on the standings here. So obviously we got LAFC in second place with 37 points. St. Louis is obviously, they're up number 1, 44 points there. Obviously, we look at the bottom. You got Colorado with 19 points and the Galaxy, LA Galaxy with 22 points. Let's talk about the Galaxy. Do you think they can make the playoffs? They're 9 points away from the ninth seed. It is possible, but I mean, I know they got Fagundes. They signed Mario Barrios, and I forgot who else they signed, but they got good signings that they probably could have used at the start of this year. But is it too late, or is there hope for Galaxy fans?
Yeah, Maya Yoshida, Billy Sharp, a couple,
Billy
additions, and I
Sharp, there we
think
go.
that when you're talking about their transfer ban, Wilkins has done. I'm assuming Wilkins is doing the major work behind the scenes, but has done so, impressive work. Right, this is a very impressive transfer window from Galaxy when they have a transfer ban. Right, to bring in not only this
Mhm.
number of players but the quality of players um, throughout. So I think it will definitely help them. I think their goal is obviously to make a run at those playoffs. Still going to be a very difficult task, though. When you're sitting that low in 13th, it's just you have to fight with a lot of teams. You're already that many points back. There are enough games to get it done, but to me, it's one of those things where it's like if you're 9 points back in 10th place, then I think you can pull it off. But when you're 9 points back in 13th place, there's just so many teams that you're fighting with. Points got to go to somebody, right? And so it becomes a very difficult task for them.
Yeah, look, I think, well, let's see. What's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they got 12 games left.
Yeah.
12 games left. Obviously, we don't think that I don't think they're going to get 36 points. I don't think they're going to win
Which
every
of
single
course they
game, but
have a couple games in hand on the people in front of them, right? Which is definitely helpful. But it's possible, but it's just very difficult. I don't think it's likely at all.
yeah, I I like the signings, and I think what we've seen from Will Kuntz, I think we kind of expected that from obviously what we saw with the LAFC.
Hmm.
I think even with that ban, he's been able to get these players. Now, I think unfortunately you're gonna have to start to look to next season if it doesn't pan out. Um, but yeah, I like the signings that they're getting, and I like the roster. This is what should have happened in the start of the year. You should have got these type of wingers, these type of players. Look, I think they've been unlucky with the health, of some players. Ricky Pooch still continue to me is one of the best, if not the best, mid central, the midfielder in this league, and what he's doing there. And I think also too, you gotta think about his future. I know there's rumors that he may not be here after this year, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ricky Pooch leaves after this season, because look, what he I don't know if reviving his career or is a word we want to use, but he looks like he enjoys the game again, and I think that's one of those things why he left Europe, because he wasn't enjoying the game with everything, his situation, what happened in Barcelona. And I think when a player finds love for the game and enjoys his life playing the beautiful game, then he's happy all around. Then you could go bounce back, right? And I think we've seen
Yeah.
players come to MLS and go back to Europe. And I think Ricky Pooch is one of those players that I think, if I would have to assume, if I had to bet, would be his last season with the Galaxy, last season in MLS. And I think he goes back to the top five up there. And I think the Galaxy will have to rebuild a little bit more. But I think if Kuntz is doing these moves, I think he definitely could attract more players to the Galaxy next season.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting. I think Vanny said something about he's very committed or something like that, referring to Puig. I don't know the ins and outs of his contract and that, but I would be surprised if he left, just because I don't know. He's been good in big games, right? He's showed up, but overall, his season has been um, not incredible, right? It hasn't. I don't think that he deserved to be an all star, and I said that at the time. So he has 7 goal contributions in MLS play this season, I think, if I'm not wrong. So yes, he shows up in big games, and yes, he's an incredible player. But if I'm in the top 5 leagues looking at him, I don't know if I'm really thinking like, let me go get Ricky Puig.
Or you could get him for a steal. If he's
Yeah, well,
interested,
but that's the
you could
that's
get
the
him for
thing,
a
like,
steal.
Galaxy aren't just gonna let him go easily, though, that's the point, right?
I kind of want to say that I don't remember his contract, so I don't want to kind of speak on that because I don't really know. But I think, did they sign up for 2-3 years, or was it just 2 years? I don't remember.
He has
What? What?
through the end of next season.
To the end of next
Through
season?
the end of 2025, he signed a 3.5-year contract.
He
So
did.
he has 2 more years on his contract after this,
Okay. Well.
which is why Galaxy have no incentive to sell this at the end of the
Okay.
season.
Well, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought for some reason I was thinking, you know what? I might have got mixed with Chicharito's contract
Chicharito's is
being
over, yeah.
yeah, I think that's what I might have got confused. So if he's till 2025, okay, then that makes things a little bit more complicated. But okay, then I could definitely see him staying or potentially being loaned out if he wants to go back to Europe. But yeah, no, I think that'd be interesting. But yeah, I think a player like Ricky Puig has so much to offer, and we'll have to see what
Still
happens.
young though, right? Like he can spend another year or two in MLS and then go back, right? He's still young. So
Yeah, he's only 24 years old, but I feel like he's in his prime right now, and I think if he can't have another year like he did with the Galaxy, you know, like not playing games, not playing in the biggest tournament in MLS and all these different things. Even though, like, I think I has to, like, if I'm in his situation, I want to try to play as many games as I can. If he's still motivated, he still wants to compete, which I definitely see. And I think for a sense there is some you have to believe that there is some doubt in him that, like, hey, the Galaxy's not getting me these games and I'm not getting all these reps, then it'd probably be best
that's
for me to look elsewhere.
well, that's what I think it is for Galaxy, right? They have to build around him. That was originally the goal, and they just failed to do so. Because Yeah, Ricky Puig would want to be on a team at the top, right? Because if he's on a good team, if Galaxy are performing, he's showcasing his abilities, he's racking up those goal contributions, he's getting those views from Europe. But when Galaxy are performing poorly, it's not that Ricky Puig is a bad player. He's a great player, but he's not going to get those goal contribution numbers because the team around him isn't that great, right? So that is a great point.
And also when Messi comes into this league, he just sucks in all the air out, and you forget about a player like Ricky Puig who's been solid. You forget about a lot of players, not just Ricky Puig, but like Ricky Puig has to be that much better. His team has to play that much better to even make noise around the league, to get that exposure. And I think with Messi, it just makes a situation like Ricky Puig a little bit more difficult. Not saying that he can't get but when your team's not doing good and it's going to lead to you not performing well and all those different things. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with him. But yeah, that's going to wrap things up here. I know we wasn't too much to talk about here, especially the LA teams. But we'll see what happens here moving forward. Second half of the season, a lot going on. LAC got a lot of games. Galaxy is going to try to make it here. So with that, for Justin, this is Gio. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.